Hey there hunters, welcome back to the Gunners Guild. It's been a long and tedious process of updating all the sets and making new templates for my bowgun stuff going forward, mostly because I suck, but I also just wanted it to look reasonably pretty. Anyway, finally done making the budget sets with the new armor pieces for all the raw and elemental gunning. The new update did give us a lot of nice armor pieces to play with, but sadly not any really new weapons here were reusable, so it's a shame. So with this set video, we're going to be incorporating a very budget friendly charm, not no charm, but as the only two charms I'm going to be using here are a weakness exploit 2 charm with no slots, which can easily be replaced with like an attack 2 charm with no slots, spare shot 2 charm with no slots, pretty much anything that has 2 level 2 decorations worth of skills that we would normally use. The other charm here for elemental setups is just recoil down 2 and reload speed 2, so it's 4 level 1 slots, and again this can easily be replaced with having any amount of slots on your charm really, or pretty much whatever because there's a lot of like free space and flexibility on the elemental setups. These budget setups will also not be including any anomaly armor augments, though you should augment your bowguns when you can. Typically for the bowguns you want 1 attack and 1 crit for raw bowguns, 2 raw for elemental bowguns, and then upgrade the rampage slot if you have a level 1 rampage slot. Anyway, moving on to these sets, which is why we're all here, let's start with the normal light bowgun. We're going to be using Abyssal Hailstorm, which is Orgasmagorm's light bowgun. Pretty much going to be using this for all your level 3 raw MOs for light bowgun. All these bowguns will have raws with their included power barrel mod as well as augments. Looking at the skills, you do want the ballistics and steadiness because the extra range on normals is really going to help you sit in that critical firepower distance more comfortably. And if you don't use critical firepower, there's really no reason to run normals ever. It's still not quite as strong as spread bowguns even with critical firepower, but it is easier to land those single hits compared to spread hits, and it does let you play at slightly further distances. The decorations here are going to be the required decorations. You're kind of free to put them wherever, just make sure you count them out. Since bowguns have very few usable level 4 decorations, there will be times where you're putting a level 2 or level 3 in a level 4 slot. It looks and feels bad, but that's just kind of how it is right now, unfortunately. We don't have a normal heavy bowgun setup because there's really not much of a reason to do it, especially on a budget build. Light bowguns getting 30% more damage from critical firepower is just too good to pass up. Heavy bowgun can run siege normals, and I'm still kind of playing around with that, but it's not very good. Maybe on a min-max setup it could be decent, but yeah, I don't know about that. So moving on to Pierce bowguns. While you can use Pierce 3 with the Abyssal Hailstorm like I mentioned, it's really not any better than rapid fire Pierce 2s, so we're going to be using that. We're using Malzeno's light bowgun for our go-to rapid fire Pierce 2s. The main difference between this one and Shigaru's is that it can walk and reload its Pierce 2s, which is really nice, and it has 1 more clip size. And of course it has higher raw and the slot. There's just kind of a lot on it, so it makes gearing a lot easier, and it's just a lot better for the budget set. Even with min-max gear, I'd probably still run this over Shigaru's unless I really needed the status MOs off Shigaru's. It's just a lot easier to get affinity now in Sunbreak with max might, weakness exploit, and bloodlust compared to stacking raw. So typically I just use Malzeno's because of the higher raw. Anyway, the set here has ballistics for the same reason as normals, just because we're running critical firepower, but Pierce has a much easier time sitting in the distance since we're running a silencer, so we have actually really good range on it. For heavy bowgun, I actually don't recommend a Pierce heavy bowgun because it feels inferior to light bowgun pretty much all the time, but if you want to use it, I would go with Magnamalo's heavy bowgun. It doesn't have walk and reload on its Pierce 3s compared to things like Nargacuga or Varioth, but that's fine. The slots help it a lot, and it does have access to sticky 3s and exhaust ammo, which are very nice. I will be putting redirection on all my heavy bowgun sets because it's damn near mandatory for TA stuff. If you don't need it, that's fine, you can take it off and put other skills in, but eating for shifter and using redirect is a great way to recover life off doing the shoulder check and getting chip damage that way. I'm also not using Setting Sun on Pierce 3s, typically because you're going to get all your hits in on Pierce 3s anyways. It's far more effective on Elemental Pierce compared to Pierce 3, so I keep Glide on, which is incredibly good for repositioning, and it does have Hyper Armor so you can soak through attacks at the same time. Plus maintaining Setting Sun is also really annoying. Onto the spread bowguns, starting with the light bowgun. Again, same bowgun, shocker, Orgasmagorm. This is still hands down the strongest raw bowgun in the game. The plus side of running spreads too is that the Ragnarok gear is actually really strong for spreads, so we can easily slap in spare shot here as well. And if you look at the skills, this budget setup pretty much has everything on it covered with just a Wex 2 charm. If you have extra slots to play with though through like armor augments or charms, I would try to remove the steadiness to get ballistics 3 and then get attack up, but that's pretty much it. For heavy bowgun, spread 3 setup, you actually have a choice between bowguns. While Tetranodon does have the most raw for spread 3 heavy bowgun, Magnamalo's heavy bowgun has better slots with a 3 and 1 deco slot, as well as having access to exhaust and sticky ammo, which I regularly use in hunts. More often than not, I find myself using Magnamalos instead of Tetranodons. If you have extra slots, I'd recommend getting Tune Up 2 so you can get that extra 2.5% more raw from your power barrel, and then go for ballistics and attack boost. Or you can just get rid of redirection and put those in if you don't like them anyway, so yeah, plenty of room to do what you want. Don't bother with Grand Golem's heavy bowgun. I mean, I used it for a shield heavy bowgun setup, but its spreads have no walk and reload, as well as having slow reload that you can't recover from. It gives you way too much downtime, so it's great stat wise, but the reload's just terrible. Alright, so that's all the raw bowguns. Feel free to reference my chart of what bowguns we're using and why, but all this stuff is going to be in the description and on my Twitter and stuff too. It's going to be everywhere. Moving on to the budget elemental setups. We're going to start with fire and light bowguns. So, surprising to no one, we're still using Rathal's light bowgun for fire. That hasn't changed. We're using elemental pierce whenever possible. It's just better than regular elemental ammo even on rapid fire for most monsters. And while you can technically use Silverlos for rapid fire pierce element, I don't really recommend it at all, as it does require a lot more skill investment to even be worth considering. As far as this set and skills go, the main question that I always get is why do I put attack and raw boosting skills on these elemental sets? And I have plenty of videos showing the math and explaining why you do elemental gunning with raw. It's because it doesn't scale like normal weapons. It scales off your raw. So you do want raw too, as well as your elemental stuff. These budget sets aren't going to be including like suicide things for like dereliction, as the whole point is to have comfy sets that pretty much anyone can toss together, so they're not going to be super min-maxed, of course. Moving on to heavy bowguns for fire. I know a lot of people prefer Orangutan's heavy bowgun for fire element, but I do believe Ragnarok's is better for most people. Orangutan has 20 more raw and can walk and reload its fire pierce, but Ragnarok having 40% base affinity is huge since crit LE is really easy to slap in here. It also does have regular fire ammo to fall back on if you ever run out of your fire pierce, whereas Orangutan does not. Min-maxers probably will still want orangutans, but this budget setup is still incredibly strong. Also, we do always use setting sun on elemental pierce setups, it's just too strong not to, so keep that in mind, though we do sadly lose our wire bug glide. For ice bowguns now, light bowgun is still be using Deora Hornet. And like look, by now you should realize that we're all using the same bowguns we've always used all my past videos, same stuff all the time. Nothing really new is going on here. None of the new ones are really good. Anyway, Deora's for ice, and while the ice pierce ammo only does have a clip size of 3, it still does have para 2s and sticky 2s and sticky 3s for supportive ammo, which is really nice. And it still has rapid fire ice ammo to fall back upon when you run out of ammo. Lunagaron's light bowgun is fine too, but rapid fire elemental pierce is a big trap, so I really don't want to bother with it. And also, you may notice a pattern of us just using 1 point of elemental exploit in all these sets, and that's because 1 point of elemental exploit is worth 10% elemental damage, and it's 15% at 3 points. There's really not much of a reason to get all 3 points. For heavy bowgun in ice, it's a really tough choice between Lunagaron's and Kushala Deora. I know the obvious choice is Lunagaron's because it has 20 more raw over Kush and has walk to reload on ice pierce, but Kushala has para 1s and para 2s, and it has ice ammo to fall back on in case you run out of ammo. And I keep saying that because it's actually very important, because you do run out of ammo, especially if you're bringing these to like anomaly fights and stuff and multi-monster fights. You will run out of ammo. But I'm going to say that Lunagaron is still the better bowgun, but I will wager that I'm going to find a reason to run Kush instead. Thunder bowguns. Kizu is still kind of the bread and butter here for light bowgun, unfortunately, as it does not have walk and shoot on elemental pierce, which is a big drawback. But it does have clip 6 rapid fire thunder ammo to fall back on too. It has excellent slots and raw, and you can actually run both critical firepower and elemental reload on this incredibly easily, which makes it hit like a truck. But if you don't like the no walking and shooting part of it, then your only real option is to run Astalos' light bowgun. It has rapid fire pierce thunder that can walk and shoot, and no other bowgun does, but it has nothing else going for it. So yeah, it's definitely not optimal, but I know what it feels like to be stationary and shooting, and that's not fun. So if you don't like Kizu's, run Astalos. Heavy bowgun, same old Narwa heavy bowgun, there's just nothing bad about it, and there's no reason to use anything else. Not only does it have fat clip sizes for both Thunder Pierce and regular Thunder ammo, it has great slots, solid raw, and no real downsides. It even has decent status ammo support for itself, so yeah, that's always going to be our go-to. And the same holds true for pretty much the water bowguns. Light bowgun has only and will ever only use emulsions for water. It's got crazy clips for both Pierce water and normal water ammo, Solid support with exhaust ammo, great slots, really just no negatives. No other light bowgun comes close in the water department. As with heavy bowguns, we really didn't have a solid water bowgun in base rise, but at least we have one now with the crab, and all crab weapons are really nice. The main downside to the crab heavy bowgun is that we don't have regular water ammo to fall back on for some reason, and it doesn't have really any supportive ammos, it's just straight water pierce. But it does have solid raw and slots to help it out, though it's not like we have any other competition in this slot anyway, so we're kind of stuck with it. Alright, so that's all my budget bowgun builds for raw and element, light and heavy. As I mentioned, all my references will be posted all over the place. If you're wondering about food skills and other bowgun related info, please check out my other videos I've done or just yell at me on Twitter. I will be doing the min-max versions with armor augments, but that's going to take a little bit more time as it's going to be up to a lot of personal accountability, because you're going to be able to run the exact same set with pretty much any combination of armor pieces thanks to the augments. So it's really going to be more of a reference of where you should go between the budget and the min-max version, what skills you should be looking for and stuff. So it's going to be a little bit different of a format. But that's all for me. Thank you all for watching and good luck out there, hunters.